Hello, my name is Dean Contover. Thank you for watching today. This is the current buzz. And when the buzz is now, we have Maria Santos, and she's an attorney in town, immigration attorney mostly, right, Maria? Mm-hmm. And she's a member of the school committee in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. Are you going to run again, or this?
I haven't decided yet.
Okay, you haven't decided. Okay.
I have one more year.
All right. We're going to talk about immigration. We're going to talk about this little booklet called the Passport. This is the gold, believe me, when you travel. I remember, Maria, one time I was, American, no problem. He stamped my passport, and he just gave me my passport. Once he saw the American passport, didn't even look at it. I think he did look at the picture, but, no problem. Mm-hmm. And I saw other times when I was traveling.
Now, you can only get that passport when you become a U.S. citizen.
That's correct.
Right?
And how do you become a U.S. citizen?
All right. It takes a long time to become a U.S. citizen. Many people think they just want citizenship. All they want to be is a citizen of the United States.
And vote.
Vote. And
but they don't vote till they become a citizen.
Right.
It could take 5 years usually, right? That's the minimum.
In a federal election, there is no voting unless you are a U.S. citizen.
That's correct.
Okay, there are some very minimal number of locations in the United States, local elections sometimes do allow green card holders to vote, but that is very rare, and you need to be a U.S. citizen,
right?
Period. Now, you brought along, I love to see this. This is your grandmother's naturalization
papers.
So Dean's family goes deeper in its roots in the United States. Mine only started in the 1970s. 1972 is when I immigrated to the United States with my mom and dad and my sister. For you, it goes much deeper.
I think the case 1900.
In the 1900s. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's been, over 100 years for you, right?
Right.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and the family has, were in World War II, the whole nine yards. They were veterans, that type of thing.
Experiencing it here.
Yeah.
And coming out of the world wars, we had the 1950s, a glorious time.
Right.
And that whole concept of the American dream.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
That we all aspire to. And I remember as a child, when my parents were talking about coming to the United States, and they talked about America in that glorious American dream idea. Mm-hmm. And you and I were talking about it, and to me, the American dream always means that generationally, we can change in terms of aspiring to certain better lives and better goals and so on. And I think right now that is in question, whether we in our own society here in the United States can achieve that for our children going forward. I think that in many people's mind has become a question. And as a result, I'm just going to just finish that thought. And I think as a result, people have come to fear immigrants. Because we may take away that immigrants may take away that opportunity for the folks who are here in the United States, our children, to continue to move forward generationally.
Our children can't buy a home these days, out of college or anything like that.
Right.
I'm gonna run this by you. Canada recently passed a law where no foreigners could buy property.
Foreigners meaning that they're in China
outside,
or whatever.
Yeah, that's exactly
investing in Canada.
In Canada.
Directly in Canada.
And raising the price of homes.
Yeah, there has been talk about that before in the United States. And we know that during certain times, certain countries have bought a lot of properties in particular parts of the United States. We still have that. We still have investment in the United States from abroad. How do I feel about that personally?
Well, I mean, they buy farmland. They buy,
I don't think it's going to be much farmland.
Agriculture.
I don't think it's going to be much farmland. I think it's going to be more
condos.
Yeah, investing in property,
yeah.
in major cities in the United States might be what foreigners want to do. You look at England, you've got the same issue. A lot of Russians have bought property in England and so on. So it's a decision to make whether you want to allow that or not. But the fear that is created, I think, has led to a position in the United States right now where we are making no policy on immigration that really benefits our country in the long run.
What was the last time immigration law was passed in the consensus between Republicans? Isn't it 1996 or something like that?
That was the biggest change in the 90s, and that was IRA, which is, you know, the 3-year bar, the 10-year bar. To if you are here more than 3 years, if you are here more than 10 years, you've overstayed or entered through the border. If you leave the United States, you're not going to come back in. All right, that created a illegal, quote unquote, people who are here without status in the millions. So we've got 11, 12 million people, that's the count, that are here without that status. And that's what that law led to. Because if you really think about it, when the policy was being enacted into law, who is going to just willy-nilly leave the United States?
No one.
Knowing that they're not going to be able to come back.
No, not
so it created that whole group of immigrants who entered and don't have any authorization. What has that led to? That has led to people having to live, because people have to live, right? By working without authorization. We have plenty of those people. In fact, COVID really made it so that in the states that remained open during COVID, these folks who didn't have the authorization to work were able to go to those states and continue to work because they didn't get benefits or anything during that time.
Or medical coverage.
So they went. So, for example, they would go down to Florida and work in Florida. Many have since moved out.
Agriculture, though.
It's not all agriculture.
No, okay, all right.
It's definitely
Oh,
not.
okay.
You go to a store, you go to Dunkin' Donuts, you go to
you go to any restaurant
place.
in Boston, any restaurant in Boston.
A hotel.
Yep.
And you see the folks who are cleaning the rooms and so on. You are not going to see people other than immigrants. Whether you know that they have work authorization or not, you don't.
No, you don't. That's not.
But the majority probably do not, okay? Because they are part of that 11, 12 million who are here without the ability to obtain work authorization and to legalize.
Right.
And that's been a huge battle because the question, should we give them a path to citizenship to getting to that point?
Yeah.
All right?
The
last proposals I saw would take 10 to 15 years for a person to be able to obtain that.
Plus the money, you told me it was $275.
No, $725
$700
to apply for naturalization.
To go through the process. That's a lot of money for somebody that doesn't have money.
It is.
It's living on the
Yeah, they now have applying for naturalization loans that you can take out through a bank or a credit union.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding. That is available because it's that expensive.
Wow.
But if we return to this, we have a lot of problems right now with the border.
But I wanted to bring that up, the border. Ukraine, Israel, the border.
Has been tied in together in order to get a deal through Congress.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. And many say that it's really the Biden administration that opened it up to that connection. Now, when I look at it from what I've seen all through the years, is that I believe immigration is truly about our national security.
Well, good point.
So
do I.
So in many ways, I am really glad to see the tie-in. You know why? Because it is about national security. We want to remain a democracy.
Right.
I believe. We want to make sure we have borders that are defined, that other countries are not going to take us over. You know, suddenly everybody who
Or attack us.
And we've been
See, can I may I say?
sure.
See, my philosophy in being in the military, every country's an enemy or potential enemy. So, good.
It's
I
about our
digress.
security. We're
That's
moving
right.
people around. And anytime you bring in somebody into a country, they are choosing. We want them to be able to say, yes, I choose to come to this country and to become a part of this country.
And fight for it.
And fight for it. And in
If-
fact, when you take the oath in a naturalization ceremony, you take the oath that you will fight for the country if you need to fight for the United States. If it
That's
comes to that
you're
point.
correct on
Yep.
application for naturalization. The Form
asks that.
N-400 it asks that.
It
I
is
did
part
read
of the oath that you
It
take.
is. It is.
And it means something to somebody who takes that oath. If you have ever had the privilege to go to a naturalization ceremony,
Go.
you will see that people are wholeheartedly swearing that they will be part of the American culture and the American system.
What's interesting, I've been to a naturalization. I think every American should go to at least one.
Yeah. It's wholeheartedly they want it.
Yeah,
Okay.
they-
And I think in immigration that's a very good thing to do is create policies that get people here who really want it. Now, national security, when we talk about national security, that to me also means economic security. It means social security. It means us being able to get our kids to our next generations to live the American dream. All right, so there's been a lot of discussion recently about whether we're going to be able to continue to have Social Security the way that we have it now, because the fund is questionable whether it can carry on forward. Now, it needs people to continue to fund it in order to be able to pay out.
Right.
And that's workers.
So why don't they bring in the workers legally so they could pay towards Social Security, which would help me and you and
take those
other
11
people.
million people and have them
pay into Social
into Social
Security.
Security and into our system. And now what they do is they're in an underground system in a way to work in the United States and to keep their lives going.
Called under the table.
Under
working,
the table.
working under
and it's
the
more,
table.
I think it's more underground.
Okay, all right, yeah.
It does not create a good society to be able to do that. Now, I understand there is fear, but I think that there's logic here too. We can't have what some other countries have done, which is define what our needs are as a nation, as a country, and create a system that allows certain numbers in certain areas of the economy to come in to work with authorization, maybe from the beginning or within the first 30 days or 60 days, so that they can come and work in those positions that are necessary.
You mean like a visa to come, like the what's the
H-1Bs.
H-2Bs?
H-2Bs, H-1Bs. H-2Bs are not an answer, not in today's economy, because they are for temporary seasonal workers.
I see.
All right, they come to the United States, they can stay here a maximum 9 months, they have to leave, and then come back in again if they have another sponsor, all right? What happens? Another sponsor is always going to need them in the next season.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Because I go up to Maine. I love Maine. Maine is a place I enjoy going in the summer.
Yeah.
I have met young people from all over the world as a result of going to restaurants in Maine in the summer.
That's right. Same thing on the Cape.
They're coming in as the Js,
Yeah.
the J1s, the exchange type of systems that we've created.
And they learn English.
Cape is the same idea, exactly. You go to the skiing in the mountains, you're going to get the same type of thing. So those exchanges are not sufficient anymore. to fill the positions that we need filled in the United States. And climate change has a lot to do with this because seasons are not as well defined and so on. But anyway, our needs have changed. We need a system that changes with our needs. And that way, allow people to enter in legally. That's what I think would be important. And unfortunately, our Congress has not acted. And it needs congressional action. So in the past administrations, what's happened is the executive, the president, humanitarian parole is a great example. That's in the fight right now. Do we keep humanitarian parole at the level where it's at, giving the president, the executive branch, the authorization to say, okay, these people from Afghanistan, we can't get them visas because Congress won't act to give them a visa. So we're going to allow them in temporarily under a humanitarian parole authorization.
Didn't we do that with the Guatemalans and the Honduras?
We're doing it for a lot of different groups.
And they're still here.
We're doing it
that
for a
happened
lot
20 years ago.
Exactly. We're doing it for a lot of temporary protected status is a form of that kind of parole right. And I think that we need to examine that and say, really? Is that temporary? No, it's not temporary.
No.
And during the Trump administration, you remember that he did not once again say, okay, you can continue on in this temporary protected status. And there was a big uproar about that.
Right.
That's because that policy doesn't work anymore. It needs to change.
I want to read this on the application. It says, I will support and defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Right.
Well,
foreign and domestic.
Yeah, and I want to bring that up. I talk to people, and they always tell me about in my country, this happens or that happens and so forth. And I say to them, well, let me ask you this question: are you an American citizen? Are you here legally? Yeah. Oh yeah. And well, this is your country now.
Mm-hmm. This is your country.
This is your country, not well, my country. And they're talking about wherever they're from, Africa, Europe, or whatever, and they talk in that sense. Well, there's something that people should remember is this: if a war breaks out between your country and the United States, who are you going to fight for, the United States or your former country?
If you're a citizen,
yep,
you have sworn an oath.
That's correct.
Okay. But we require so much time and such a process to get to the point of that naturalization, unless you are born in the United States,
right,
which is your immediate right to citizenship.
Reading, all 20 pages, right, of the application of naturalization, a lot of people in this country would not pass this.
Mm-hmm.
Or they would deceive it, and then they'll get caught by deceiving the application.
No.
And then what happens when you get caught? You get kicked out of the country.
Naturalization process through what we now have in existence, the process, requires that USCIS go back to the very beginning when the individual came into the United States. So when a person applies for naturalization, their files are all retrieved from storage and reviewed.
It's all on computer now, isn't it?
Well, there's still a certain number of years that are not in computer.
I presume prior to the 90s, it's probably paper.
Yeah, they're in an underground storage facility.
Yeah, somewhere.
But yes, in the United States. But what happens with that is, so if you came in and you married somebody and there was fraud in that marriage or whatever, that's all going to be looked at again at the point of naturalization. If you have a criminal record, that record will come up at the point of naturalization.
And if you abuse a woman and there's a record of that.
If you have anything to do with the law, that's all going to come up at the point of naturalization. So naturalization is in many ways a way to make sure that the people who are in the United States and are a citizen of this country aren't criminals and aren't bad people, quote unquote, for society.
Are you a member of the Communist Party? Are you of the totalitarian party?
Right.
Are you a terrorist organization? Have been a member, and there are people who've come into this country who have been part of a terrorist organization.
And they have been caught.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also it says the Nazi government of Germany. In other words, you were Nazi, but I mean, most of these people have died off. Did you ever participate in the military unit, paramilitary police unit, self-defense unit, vigilante unit, guerrilla groups, militias? I mean,
one of the things right now, even in the green card application, which is called the I-485, the adjustment of status application, which is multi-pages, there are a lot of series of questions about whether you've been trained to use weapons and whether you've actually ever entered into combat. And you have to explain that whole thing. They will not just approve a petition. They will
I mean,
ask
a lot of
questions.
countries in Europe, a lot of countries have the draft,
Require it.
which probably would be better. This country start the draft because the way things are looking in regards to.
And I'm not getting into that one. I'm not going to get into that one. But I think that it's important that those questions are asked so that we know who we're letting into the country.
Right.
Absolutely. But here's the point. That's through a process, okay?
Right.
It's not just a person who entered over the border and nobody knows they're in the United States.
The question I have is this. Are they fingerprinted and pictures taken if there's 8,000 people a day coming across the border?
And they get lost within the United States. Okay, you're seeing what's happening already.
Yeah, I know.
They come in through Texas. Texas is shipping people to, busing or whatever you want to call it, to other parts of the country. And so where are they actually going to go face a judge at some point? And when is the other question? Because right now you're looking at hearings into 2026, 2027. There are not enough people in or courts, judges or anything else that will be able to deal with what's happening in the United States right now.
Okay, I have a question. Application naturalization, would you suggest that they come and see you as an immigration attorney to help them?
I will be totally honest with you. This is what I say to everybody. The majority of naturalization applications are self-filed. People file it themselves. All right? And there are a lot of organizations out there that have funding to be able to help people to learn the civics, to make sure they can read and write in English and so on, because that's another part of the test.
Right.
Fill out the application, send it in, and do the process. So attorneys are not always necessary in a naturalization process. A couple of things are very important to look at. That criminal history, if you've got one in any way, if you've ever had to face deportation or anything with an immigration court, if you've ever had a questionable marriage and that's the way you got your green card. So these are things to think about. If you had to sign up for the Selective Service, but you didn't.
Oh, so, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Okay.
If you didn't, we have about a minute to go, so tell me.
Yes, if you're a male, you got your green card, you were under the age of 32, and you did not sign up for the Selective Service, and again, it's for males, you are not going to be able to apply just willy-nilly. There's going to have to be certain things you have to go through.
You may not be able to apply for naturalization.
And you may not get it if you are under the age of 32. So you have to really look at the rules, understand them, and it's out there. Go to the Selective Service website. It talks a lot about that, and it helps you and guides you. So, those are the kinds of things that I think attorneys can help someone to understand.
Right.
And these days, more and more, there's also mental issues. So if somebody is having dementia or not being able to really do the test, take the civics exam and so on, there are waivers you can go through. So those things are changing right now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so those types of things, you need to.
It's changing procedurally, but not legally. Is that my understanding?